All right, we are ready for the main event here. So we are joined today by members of the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. And they are going to talk about their strategic plan and what they are doing to support community risk reduction efforts across the state of Wisconsin. And I was really, really excited to learn about this project and this program. Kind of on the side. I wasn't really involved when it first launched, which was a little bit surprising because they are using Craig 1300. But I love that, to find out that there are people using Craig 1300 that we didn't initially know that was happening, means that it truly is becoming a tool that is helpful for folks. And that's really great to hear. So definitely excited to have them come and tell their story about community risk reduction across the state of Wisconsin and the data-driven approach that they're using to be impactful. So that being said, I would like to welcome Sarah Brown, April Hammond, Steve Komar, and Gary Peck to kind of take the lead here.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'll turn my camera on so you can see me. I'm April. I'm a section chief at Department of Safety and Professional Services here in Wisconsin. Been in the fire service industry for about 24 years now also. So super grateful to be here to talk to you about some of our efforts on the state side of things. Community risk reduction, it's obviously a big priority throughout the nation, but it's been a priority in Wisconsin for a long time, especially because we have a strong push from industry leaders and those that work in the fire service industry, those that are out performing fire inspections, and those that do a lot of fire prevention advocacy and those types of efforts. But we have a strong passion for reducing those injuries and fatalities. And we want to come up with effective solutions to minimize risk throughout Wisconsin. So over the last couple years, a lot of our team members have done a lot of different educational opportunities, especially some of those prerequisites that are required to take some of those courses at NFA in Emmitsburg. And in 2023, what we did was we sent 2 of our fire prevention coordinators out to Emmitsburg, and they took the course in, it's called Leadership Strategies for Community Risk Reduction. And so it was a really exciting opportunity for them to get out there and network and build on some experiences and learn about different initiatives that are going on nationwide with community risk reduction. And what they did is they came back to Wisconsin with a lot of great opportunities or ideas. And so they had those opportunities to engage with leaders and experts in the industry that are all over the nation. So when they came back, they were able to present those ideas to the team, and we started coming up with different ideas, and we came up with this strategy and this strategic plan, which we're using now today. And we developed that last year, and we're going to use it into the future here. And when we did that, it incorporated Craig 1300, which we had to use buy-in. We had to get buy-in and gain buy-in from our agency leadership. So we spent a lot of time investigating different methods and techniques on utilizing our data. But what we ended up doing was going with the Craig 1300 approach and using our current data that we currently have, which was really exciting when we started really looking into it on how that data could benefit us in analyzing our risk and what we could do for community risk reduction. So when we look at our strategic plan now, what we know is we need to regularly assess that and review our strategic plan. And we're really excited about our current growth and our opportunities for community risk reduction throughout Wisconsin. Just to give you a little bit more background, I know that you're probably wondering, like, what really made us want to do this? It's been a journey. It's really been a journey on getting here. So there was a lot of conversations on getting to this point among the team when we sat down. And Karen, I don't know if you want us to share our actual strategic plan and put it up on. Do you have a copy of it, or do you want me to share?
I can actually do this.
Yeah. So if you scroll up to the top, you'll see our strategic plan. It has an actual mission statement, a vision statement. We've developed core values and strategy. And when you get down onto the second page, we realize too that this doesn't happen overnight. Coming up with a strategic plan, figuring out how we are going to actually make changes, it takes time. So we've got various types of goals. We've got 1-year goals, 3-year goals, and all the way out to 5 years, and different initiatives and targets that we want to try to achieve and hit over a time frame, which also means that we have to regularly look back and analyze our strategic plan and see if there's different things we need to change, adapt, or update. So that's something that we're regularly doing. We're doing continuous analysis, but with this, it also takes support and getting input from our industry leaders and our stakeholders and even our agency leaders have regular involvement with our strategic plan. So getting that buy-in and that support too from our different stakeholders and our industry leaders and our agency leaders, what it ended up doing was it really truly increased our staff's passion for movement in this. And I think one of the biggest aha moments for us that really made us feel like we wanted to keep, like, that just gave us drive and to move forward with the strategic plan and move forward with the Craig 1300 initiative was realizing that we're the holders of the data here in Wisconsin at DSPS. We have access to this data. We see this data coming in. And when we really truly look at the fact that we have all this data, we have the ability to make it available to others to use, and to use it for their efforts and to use it for community risk reduction. And one of the best things we could do was to put that information together and make it available for others. So when we started seeing how we could compile that data and put it out there, it was pretty obvious to us. That was our aha moment, and we knew we needed to move forward with making it available and creating more initiatives for community risk reduction, especially for everybody in Wisconsin. So I think what I'm going to do at this point, I know that there's probably a lot of questions out there about our strategic plan, but I know that the rest of the staff wants to talk about it too, that are on here. We've got Sarah and Gary and Steve. So I would like to just pass this over to them to continue going.
Awesome, thank you. All right.
Thanks, April. So good afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm Gary Peck. I'm one of the 4 fire prevention coordinators for the state of Wisconsin for our Department of Safety and Professional Services Fire Prevention and Fire Department Safety and Health program. And I just want to echo what April said. It's an honor and privilege to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to truly share our passion about community risk reduction and the great things that we're trying to do with our community risk reduction statewide initiative. What we're trying to accomplish really is our mission statement and our strategic plan, which is also our number one goal and objective, which is providing true quality data to all of our stakeholders, like April had mentioned. And that is in order to hopefully improve community risk reduction efforts in our Wisconsin communities or Wisconsin fire departments, but then obviously also limit civilian and firefighter casualties in the state as well. So that's what we're truly trying to accomplish with our statewide initiative and statewide community risk reduction plan and program. And we have seen success so far. Some of the initial successes that we've seen is we are getting incredible feedback from our fire departments, from our fire chiefs, that they are actually utilizing our Craig 1300 Wisconsin dashboard, that they're using the data. We got 3 years of quality data from incident reporting, from their incident reporting and ENFRS. So they are truly getting into our Craig 1300 Wisconsin dashboard and utilizing that quality data and using the resources in there and the training that's in there. Obviously, our Craig 1300 has a amazing, incredible example of how to conduct community risk assessment. It's got a great sample of a community risk reduction plan program. So they're getting in there. They're telling us, they're providing that positive input and feedback, that they're actually using it. They got questions of how to, conduct community risk assessment, who should be on the community risk reduction team, and to start the processes of truly create a community risk reduction program for their communities. And I'll turn it over to Steve to explain how we're helping local communities implement their community risk reduction program with the data.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate being here. I think this is a great thing. And yeah, the first thing that we do to implement a high quality community risk reduction in our local communities is to first make our stakeholders understand what CRR really is. And I'll share in the chat some links to some free online Fire Academy courses that really helped Gary and I get a grasp on the concept of CRR before we went and took the leadership strategies for community risk reduction class at the Fire Academy last year. I found that these two courses to be very beneficial. I think Gary would agree, and would be very beneficial to anybody involved in a CRR initiative. CRR, it's not just public education. It's not just fire inspections, as we know. Those are just pieces of the pie. CRR, it integrates emergency response with prevention, involves identifying, prioritizing risks, selecting and implementing strategies, monitoring and evaluating activities involving community partners, in that effort to better protect residents and in turn, our firefighters. Once our stakeholders buy into the concept, they themselves become CRR champions and advocates to spread the concept. So at this time, since we are early in the development of our program, we're getting the word out and letting our stakeholders know that CRR is growing in the United States compared to the huge success overseas, and the importance of getting on board and getting their community leaders on board.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Gary, I think you
Erin, can you scroll down to page 2 of the plan? Someone's asking.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Here, my screens are a little different today. That's why I'm a little.
I did put a link to our Craig 1300 page in the chat too, if anybody is interested in actually seeing our page. And I imagine Karen will eventually bring that up for everybody to see here online.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, Gary, do you want to talk about the tools that kind of help us make our goals, and how the communities can access and utilize these tools effectively?
Of course. Thank you, Steve. So how Craig 1300, how our Wisconsin dashboard is helping us accomplish and meet our goals. It's in many ways, truly. It's in many ways. So Craig 1300, our Wisconsin dashboard, is providing that community risk reduction resources, obviously 3 years of quality data, information, and training as well to all our stakeholders, our Wisconsin communities, our Wisconsin fire departments. And it's getting that awareness, getting that information, and number one, getting that quality data, 3 years of quality data, like April had touched on. So if you get into our Craig 1300 Wisconsin dashboard, you're going to see 3 years of data, the last 3 years of quality data from incident reporting. And it's obviously incident reporting from our Wisconsin fire departments. So we're using their NFIRS data for 3 years of quality data. And they are truly, our fire departments, our communities are actually truly getting into the data, getting into the stats, getting into the maps and breaking down their data. And if you go to one of the maps, here's a great example right here. I mean, you can zoom in so closely that it'll actually break down the street names of a Wisconsin community and color code of how many fire incidents. There's a map on cooking fires, so it'll break down how many cooking fires that they had in the last 3 years just in that area of that town, village, or city. It's amazing. And our stakeholders, our communities, our fire departments are just loving this data. So Craig 1300, like I said, is truly helping us meet our goals and objectives by providing this quality data, as you see right there. It's truly an amazing tool. And the great thing is Craig 1300, what it did for us, it actually accomplished and completed a community risk assessment for the state of Wisconsin that our stakeholders, our fire departments can utilize to start building their own and conducting their own community risk assessment and finding out what their priority risk or hazard is. You know, is it cooking fires? Is it grass fires? Is it falls with senior or falls with older adults? You know, so they'll be able to obviously use this quality data to start their community risk reduction journey in their program.
There's a
And I
question.
don't know if it, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to cut you off. You continue, and
Okay.
I'll hit you up after.
Thank you. Sorry about that. But what I was going to mention, I don't think it's been mentioned yet, is that actually we are truly providing our goal going into creating our statewide Wisconsin initiative and program is to offer it free to our stakeholders, to our state stakeholders, to our communities, to our fire departments. And our team is amazing, has done an amazing job, and we've been able to accomplish that goal. And Craig 1300 is free and anybody has access to it.
Well, that is actually
And
a really good segue because we have a question
good.
for you
Good.
that says, do you mind letting us know how you're funding the state dashboard?
Yeah, so it's through obviously the state is funding it through our 2% fire dues program. So it is again free, being offered free. Anybody has access. You can go to our Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services website. It's actually posted there twice. It's actually posted on the main page, but also our fire prevention, safety and health page as well. But it's offered free, so anybody can utilize it. And the amazing thing about our dashboard, Craig 1300, is that the opportunity for growth. There is amazing opportunity for growth with this program, and the resources and the data that we can provide our stakeholders. It's incredible.
Aaron, can you speak to that a little bit more? Because I think in some sense, I would imagine that in your role, and I'm speaking to your whole team, delivering a dashboard like this that just has so much data available to communities in some ways might open up a can of worms, where folks are just like, oh my goodness, there's so much information here. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. What do we do with it? I bet you have a group of people who are saying, what do we do with it? And then there's probably another group of people who are saying, now let's do this, and now let's do this, and imagine if we could do this. And how has that kind of response, first of all, am I right? And second of all, how has that response impacted the work that you're doing related to your strategic plan?
Great points and great questions. And absolutely, absolutely, we're getting those reactions. We're getting both those reactions. We've had amazing opportunity. We've been going high speed ever since we implemented our statewide Wisconsin Community Risk Reduction Initiative back in October of Fire Prevention Week of 2023. And we've been going high speed ever since. And we had opportunities to actually present training presentations starting from September, October, November throughout the state of Wisconsin to our stakeholders, to Wisconsin fire departments. And those both have been the reactions we've been getting. Let's be honest, there are departments and some great ones in the state of Wisconsin that have amazing community risk reduction programs, but then there are some departments that, they were aware of community risk reduction. They heard CRR and they thought about it, really didn't look into it. And I'll be honest, as most of you know, just looking at the data that you see right there, and you look at the dashboard, community risk reduction, no doubt, can definitely be intimidating, right? It can definitely be intimidating. Just look at that data, so we definitely see that reaction from departments and communities that, it is definitely intimidating, but we've been stressing from day one we are here to help any way that we can with community risk reduction, the processes, anything with the data analysis. But then also we've been stressing from day one is keep it simple, keep it easy, right? Keep it very simple and keep it easy. Start looking at your data. Start taking a look at analyzing your local data and breaking it down and seeing what you see that could possibly be a high hazard, high risk in your community, and start there. But then also start looking at who can help you, who should be on your community risk reduction team, what resources out there. So keeping it really simple and really, really easy. So this is a great tool to answer your question or answer your questions, is that this is a great tool for all those different levels of community risk reduction programs and departments that are out there, whether they have a well-established community risk reduction program already, which there are in Wisconsin, or they're looking at the data and they're thinking about creating, or they might not even, community risk reduction may not even be on their radar yet. So this tool, this amazing dashboard, helps all those departments, those communities, no matter where they're at in their community risk reduction journey.
That's a really interesting perspective, in that you obviously across a state, you're going to have some communities that are pretty savvy with the community risk reduction process. And you have others that are really just dipping their toes into the water for the first time. And how exciting, Chelsea and I often talk about that golf swing, right? Learning how to golf and recognizing that most of us at some point in our life have picked up a golf club without proper training. And we're horrible at it. And so if we truly want to get on the tour, we have to unlearn what we were doing, get some correction, and start fresh. So there's a lot of people in that space, but if you have people who are new to our space and they're starting with the data, that's super exciting for you across the state, because they're going to think of community risk reduction in the data story of their neighborhoods at the starting point. So they understand where their vulnerable populations are. They understand the capacity that sits in the community through their partnerships and their agencies. And they understand the true risks related to the hazards in their neighborhoods as well. So super exciting. I'm wondering, and if I'm sending you down a path that you're not prepared to talk about, please feel free, but it's just starting off a whole bunch of ideas in my head. For those communities that are perhaps a little bit more savvy and might have some initiatives that are already taking place, do you have a sense of how they are using the data in conjunction with the initiatives that are already kind of up and running?
Great question. So some of the fire departments that had already had a great program already established. We do know, talking with a few of them and networking with a few of them, that they are getting into our dashboard. They are getting into Craig 1300 and looking at the data, and they are providing some amazing input and feedback as well, to include adding an EMS component possibly to it. And that is great input and feedback, to have. So we are having those conversations. We are getting that input and feedback from those communities, those departments that already have a well-established community risk reduction program. So that's what we need. Like I said, there's opportunity for growth for our program, for our initiative, and for Craig 1300. So we need that input and feedback. But also, too, it helps us getting that input and feedback of what those well-established community risk reduction programs already in the state, what they need or what they want from us. It helps us to expand our initiative, our goals, and our strategic plan, and to add to it, to include possibly looking at, which we've had very small discussion so far, but possibly looking at creating, hopefully in the near future, a statewide community risk reduction coalition or alliance, right? With all the major associations in the state of Wisconsin, to include obviously our State Fire Chief Association, State Fire Inspector Association, State Firefighter Association, our State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Wisconsin Emergency Management. So getting them involved along with others and putting all the resources together and providing the best statewide community risk reduction program that we can offer. And as we all know, not only in fire emergency services, but community risk reduction, it takes a team. You just can't do it by yourself. It takes a true team to make positive things happen and reduce risks. So that's what we're trying to do.
Really, really exciting and awesome thoughts. And I think that whole piece of the collaboration and the partnerships is a key here as well. You know, one of the things that we talk about a lot with community risk reduction is just an increase in efficient deployment of resources. And when you look at risk and risky populations in your communities, that whole Pareto principle comes into view, right? Like, so
Right.
80% of your resources are dedicated to 20% of your population. And that's pretty much a general rule that we're going to find across the board. So if you can find out who that 20% is, and then you realize that, you know what, Department of Housing is also focusing on that 20%, and Elder Services is focused on the same 20%. And, you know, Department of Health also might be working with that same 20%. And so if you bring all those people to the same table and you collaborate towards common goals, now you have a more efficient way to address the needs of that particular population, and you're able to broaden the scope of the work that you're doing, which is super exciting and interesting. So thank you for sharing that. Chelsea, how are we doing with questions in the chat?
We are doing pretty good. I think you talked a little bit about the training you mentioned that you have training for your local jurisdictions with some of the data, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, Gary. The question was, are there training opportunities to help local departments use the data on the dashboard to drive their local programs? But maybe you can talk about, like, how are these identified and who delivers it and what does it look like?
Of course. So great question, by the way. So like I stated previously, is that when we implemented our initiative, our statewide program, and our Craig 1300 Wisconsin dashboard, is that it was perfect timing, and we planned it that way. That was obviously our plan, to also get out there immediately and provide the training on community risk reduction and Craig 1300. We actually started the training presentation in September before Craig 1300, our statewide initiative and program, was actually, before it was implemented. So we focused on community risk reduction, the processes, you know, who should be on your team, and breaking down, you know, what resources are available, what training was available to get going, basically looking at their high priority and analyzing that data and trying to figure out what their high hazard or high risk is in their community, and trying to enforce and influence and stress how important community risk reduction is. And when we were able to implement Craig 1300, our Wisconsin dashboard, during Fire Prevention Week last year, is then we transitioned that presentation. We modified it to obviously include Craig 1300. We did include it back in September, those presentations, that it was coming and what it was and what it was able to do, the amazing things it was able to do. But then when we implemented it in October, Then we did a overview of Craig 1300. So we actually went to our dashboard, got into the stats, the data, got into the maps, the different links, the different resources, and we went over and did a quality overview of the capabilities and the amazing resource and what it can do, which is Craig 1300 Wisconsin dashboard.
Thank you. Let's see what else. There's a question, and this is from JARO 225. And maybe you can unmute if you have the ability to ask, because I'm not exactly sure you're on and I don't want to misinterpret.
Oh, I think I understand what
Okay,
they
go
are
for it.
asking. Maybe when the data gets collected and it's maybe imported into the software product and then made available to the stakeholders, how often that's done, when it's done. And this might be a great segue. I'm sorry if I didn't interpret that correctly, but this might be a great segue for Sarah to answer some questions on how we get our data, collect our data, how validated the data is. And if I'm wrong about that interpretation, please correct me.
You
But
said
I think
perfect.
this is
They said perfect, so you're good.
perfect. Awesome. So I think this is a great segue for Sarah to kind of provide some information on the data that we collect.
Sure, thanks, April. So first off, I'm Sarah Brown. I am the State NFIRS Program Manager here in Wisconsin. So basically, I help all of the fire departments in Wisconsin to get their NFIRS reporting in and done correctly. So with your question, you're wanting to know, like, when do we do this bulk import, as I would call it. And I do believe that we do that the following year after we do an NFIRS release. Okay, so this isn't going to be like what I would call a live system. So you're not going to be able to see like 23's data until next year, probably, well, I should say in around 2024, probably around in the fall sometime, because we don't actually release the data to NFIRS until July, around July 1st of the previous year's data, because this way it gives the states time to make sure that all of their data is in, that it's valid, that it's been confirmed that, sometimes people, when they're entering a dollar amount, instead of putting in 200,000, they'll put in 200 million for a property loss. So this helps us to keep those data quality standards in check, is to give us a little bit of time to get everything to be the way it's supposed to be and everything valid. So usually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we were going to start doing imports. We did them last year, like right around, right before we went live. So that would have been in September-ish. So you could probably look to see that those imports will be done again around the same time. A couple other things that I wanted to talk about too today, and it kind of goes with this question too, is we got a couple strategies, or a few strategies, that we use here in Wisconsin to actually get good data, good quality data. And so I'm just going to mention 3 of them right off the bat. One of them is, it's a state requirement. It's in our state statute. It's in our admin code that fire departments have to report all fires to a federal agency that is specified in the statute, which in this case would be NFIRS. The statute further explains how often they have to report, when it needs to be done, the causes of the incidents, the amount of losses, and things like that. We require the incident report to be completed to an NFIRS standard. So whatever NFIRS says is a valid import, that's what we say is a valid import. The only exception that we have here in Wisconsin to an NFIRS report would be the age of the building. If it's a building fire, we also want to know what the age of the building was. The second thing that I think is really important is the education aspect of this. It's our job to explain and educate to the fire departments on what NFIRS, why NFIRS is so important. You know, like the saying goes, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. This is so true in this day and age. We have to document everything. We show them that reporting all of their incidents, not just their fires, but all of their incidents, helps them to obtain grants and other money to keep their fire departments running. You know, documentation validates their need for funding. I usually send out a monthly report that shows who's reporting, who's not reporting, if you have invalids, you know, how many valid incidents you have, you know, things like that. That really helps to keep our quality up. The third thing is our customer service. I know that when I'm speaking, I am speaking for all of us at Fire Prevention. We love our jobs. We find that when you're an approachable, friendly, helpful person, and try to make things a little bit easier for the fire service, they want to comply and they want to get their reports entered. So, you know, all these things together help us to help them do their jobs. I usually, one little saying I always say is, you attract more bees with honey than you do vinegar. So that's one thing that, you know, when I say that we're, you know, approachable and nice and whatever, when that really helps to get your fire departments to be compliant. Did that answer your question pretty good?
I think so.
Yeah. I really appreciate all of that context, Sarah. And I know that, you know, there's a small handful of states that are using Craig 1300, and really everybody's using it a little bit differently. I see your hand, Teresa. I'll get to you in 1 second. And certainly Maryland is one of those states that we could speak to. But I know in some cases they do not have the rich data that you have. So I'm really glad that you were able to address that. I know some of you had heard Ashley from Louisiana speak in the past about their Craig 1300 dashboard. And one of the challenges they were having is that they were not getting folks to submit their data, and they were using the dashboard as, I don't want to say a carrot, but basically just an opportunity for departments to see what they could be doing if they were submitting their data to the State Fire Marshal's office. So there's a lot of different ways to address that and use it as a motivating factor for communities, depending on where they are in that continuum of practice.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a great idea. I mean, you know, it kind of shows them that, hey, you know, look what we could be doing if you reported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely that. Teresa, did we give you an answer to your question before you asked it?
No, I just
Okay.
wanted to let everybody know that I was on the website, and when you go to page 2 of their Craig 1300, you go to the community service organization template, the PDF in the Microsoft Word. It is
Mhm.
giving you a service error in application. Don't know what that means.
Okay, thank you. That's actually good to know.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So Wisconsin team, any early success stories? I know you might say, well, Fire Prevention Week was way back in October, but in the reality of the scope of a 5-year plan, this is definitely in its infancy. But I'm just wondering off the bat, are you seeing any communities just jumping in and being impactful with their initiatives now that they have data at their fingertips?
Great question. And like I stated already, is that yeah, we've had initial success stories. Is that we've had obviously numerous fire departments reach out and tell us that they are getting into Craig 1300 and analyzing the data locally and starting the processes and breaking down and creating their team and creating their plan, the community risk reduction plan and program. So that is definitely a success, and we continue to hear those stories, and we continue to influence and stress how important community risk reduction is with every contact that we make with fire departments through consultations, audits. So we are continuing to be that influencer of getting that data out there and the resources out there for community risk reduction. But then also some other success stories that we're aware of is also too recently I had one of our Wisconsin tech colleges, one of the fire instructors had let me know, it had asked some questions about Craig 1300, our dashboard, community risk reduction, and they are actually implementing it into their lesson plan for one of our state fire officer 2 certification courses. So they're actually going to implement Craig 1300 into that course, that class, and actually use it as a community risk reduction assessment and tool, and actually include it into one of their assignments. So they're going to actually have to use Craig 1300 to do
Makes
some
me go like this. Oh,
data
that's so exciting.
data analysis. So that's something that I just recently found out a couple of weeks ago. So we hope to continue to build on that and again be that influencer and provide those resources and processes and that help to get communities to start community risk reduction. But then
Awesome.
also
We'll have
too,
to talk more about that next week, Gary, because that intrigues
of
me.
course, of course, of course. But then also too, which I believe is a huge success, is back in January during National Community Risk Reduction Week, the governor actually signed a state proclamation recognizing National Community Risk Reduction Week. And we presented that proclamation to the president of the state Wisconsin Fire Chiefs Association. So I consider that a major success as well.
Yeah, elevating that awareness is definitely an important
Right.
step as well. Love
Right.
it. I see Lori has her hand up. Hello.
Oh, I was wondering if Wisconsin has a state fire code, and if so, do you see the data available through the statewide dashboard driving any statewide initiatives, both from an enforcement aspect and then also just statewide prevention efforts, if there's any kind of those bigger things instead of just focusing on the local departments?
I think I could take this one. I would say that opportunities are endless. I think that the data is going to lead us down a lot of different paths in the future. We do have a statewide fire code. It's called SPS 314. It's our fire prevention code, and then it adapts and references the NFPA standard. So we utilize that for fire prevention efforts in Wisconsin and enforcement. And then municipalities can adopt and reference other codes too. But what I do see is us utilizing this data to analyze risk and assess whether or not there's additional need. And so, like I said, I think the opportunities are endless, and we'll be able to identify and see what we may need to do for code updates in the future.
Awesome. Did that answer your question, Lori? Okay, awesome. All right, I think we have time for one more, and I see that Rick, you said, Sarah, can you explain the 2% dues program and how it helps us get compliance with reporting? I'm not sure if you addressed that earlier or not, and if you did, I apologize. Sometimes I'm bouncing around.
No, that's okay. So 2% fire dues, what that is we have a self-certification process that goes from January 1st to March 31st. And all the fire chiefs and all the municipality clerks in Wisconsin have to do what's a self-certification. They have to log into our ESLA system. They have to answer 5 questions, yes or no, whether or not the fire department is providing fire prevention, fire protection or fire prevention to that municipality. And it's kind of like they're just double checking each other's, answers to make sure that, we don't have a fire department out there that says that they are going to municipality fires or something like that, and they're really not. And then we also, during this 2% fire dues process, we also do audits. We audit the fire departments, and the fire coordinators can probably elaborate a little bit more on this. But they do go in and they do audit on the fire departments to make sure that they're staying compliant, doing their trainings and inspections of their vehicles and things like that. But in that it's kind of like what it is that when they do this this self-certification, it actually makes them eligible for 2% money. If they don't complete it, if they don't do it, they are automatically a fail. And in Wisconsin, we give you 2 years. So you have 2 years to be failed before we don't give you your money. Okay. So usually a lot of times I will see that maybe a clerk answers, no, so-and-so didn't provide fire protection to us. And they just don't understand the question because, it's worded like the law and nobody understands. So when they're reading it, it says, does your fire department provide fire protection services? And they may not own that fire department, so they'll answer no. And so a lot of times I find that it's just they didn't understand the question or whatever. But for the most part, we have a really good outcome or turnout, you want to say, for the 2% dues for the self-certification. We do have a really good turnout for it. We don't have, there's maybe 1 or 2 stragglers every year that may not complete it or don't complete it because they know they failed or something like that. So but that's the nuts and bolts of it, how it works. And it really does help us to to decide to get them to do their reporting because it's part of the statute. So I hope I explained your question well enough. If
Thank
one of
you.
the fire coordinators, if you want to add something about audits, that'd be great.
If I can just add, if anybody's confused when we talk about 2% fire dues program and what that is, and that's 2% of all premiums for fire insurance written on Wisconsin commercial and residential properties. So a product like Craig 1300, like Gary said earlier, is funded by that. And when it comes to the self-certification, like Sarah just explained, they need to qualify to receive some of that 2% fire dues monies. They also, every 3-4 years, us as fire prevention coordinators, we audit the fire departments to make sure that they're all in compliance with statutes. And something that kind of ties into this, we also make sure that all their NFIRS reports are in there and valid, so that we can have the quality data in this system that we need for success.
That's really awesome. And so we just think about so many purposes of that, early on in this project, Chelsea and I had talked about our PANIC framework, which it was an acronym, and that the I stood for incentivize. And in order to really elevate community risk reduction across any community or area, that whole idea of incentivizing participation is important. And we always found it to be the most challenging one. And I think this is a great example of that in action. So thank you for sharing information about that. All right, folks, we are at 3:05. Are there any other follow-up questions? Anything else? Any other points that the team would like to make?
I'm seeing none in chat.
Okay, thank you. Really, really exciting to see what's happening in Wisconsin, and I'm really excited about the future as well. Just looking forward and imagining how this really can be a jumping off point for your state and community risk reduction as a whole. I think everybody who's participating in community risk reduction initiatives gets really excited when they see actionable data in the hands of the people who need it to really move forward and get the job done.